going to be here. We're not going to be done with the singing. All right, well, you're slower than your mother.
Okay, fine.
Hey, I know, but I want to get the singing done.
Hi guys. Hang on.
Can you take my letter out to the mailbox?
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, I can.
Right here. What? 11, 5 after 11. Go ahead and put that up.
He's not here.
I'll put the flag up.
If he is really
I don't know. Put the flag up. Is that, how many nights did that girl stay in your room? Two?
I don't know. Boy. I don't know.
One night?
Oh, oh, I did. Oh, oh, night.
You were up all night?
Night.
Did she sleep?
Ever since the first day, no, night. True story.
No. Did she sleep though while you were up?
I think he was. I think it was.
You want to be right there. Okay, go put that up in there. Stop it.
No, 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 no.
Come on in.
Chef Gump.
Oh, stop.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the
Stop.
Yesterday, we had some of the most shocking
Oh,
announcements
yeah.
I've seen in
Why?
One has to do with Embracer Group continuing to shed more and more of their expenses in terms of studios. This one being basically one of the largest ones they had. We're going to go over that here today. And then also, we're going to be talking about a Microsoft studio that came along with Activision Blizzard, who's now actually broken off and gone independent. And then we also have to talk about emulation again, as Yuzu and Nintendo have been dominating the headlines, but now it appears Amazon is throwing their hat in the ring. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps it a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early and ad-free. You'll learn more about that. Check the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with something kind of funny that went on yesterday, since it was the 29th, or obviously part of a leap year that happens once every 4 years. Well, it does appear that a couple of games weren't necessarily prepared for that, as they just didn't work. Well, like for example, we can see this. It was noted by Warrior64 that EA Sports WRC is just crashing because of February 29th. EA Health is telling players to change date to March 1st to work around it, or just wait till tomorrow. Basically, you can't play it today. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And also, Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line won't load on leap days. The game is unable to connect to Square Enix's servers. Once again, wait till tomorrow or today, the March 1st. And really, if you think about it from their angle, by the time we fix this thing, it'll be March 1st anyway, so it won't matter. So yeah, set your clocks ahead, or just hang out and wait a bit. They're not really going to be dealing with it again, most likely. But for this iteration of it, maybe with the sequel, they'll have that in mind. But not really something you're typically going to deal with as a game company the 29th of February, and at least these two games clearly weren't prepared for it. Also, we were expecting Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, actually starting this month in March, as they were looking to launch it Q1 2024. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that's happening, as their latest trailer had no release date, which you can see some of that trailer here. And then as a statement they put out on the game's Steam page, the developer newsletter, they say, "We know that you want a launch date, and we understand your eagerness. We share your eagerness. Although a launch date has been considered several times, we want to take the time needed to ensure that your experience of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is as smooth, stable, and fast as can be. Many of you have already pointed this out to us. Take the time to release a game that matches your expectations. That's why we're working flat out on several aspects, including the stability of the server infrastructure, optimizing the game's performance." And in my mind, that means, yeah, it's not going to be ready this month. And most likely to me, will probably end up coming out over the summer or just second half of this year. And that's a game that's been delayed actually multiple times now. But hey, if it is going to yield a better product, then sure, take the time you need. Oh, and it does look like we got a release date for a game that was announced a while ago on the Switch, and it's finally happening here, and that's Biomutant with a new trailer that they released. The date now is May 14th, so 2.5 months at least Biomutant will be out on the Switch. This came out 2021 on the Xbox One, the PS4, 2022 it came out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and it took just a bit longer for it to come out on the Switch. I guess the one benefit here is the game will come with all previously released DLC and will come in at a price of $39.99. Now, I was expecting more out of Biomutant when it first released, although it seems like they have done updates and, as you see here, DLC. I haven't gone back to check it out since then, but in this case, if you've been waiting, holding out for that Switch version, it looks like you won't have to wait too much longer. Just 2.5 months. Looks towards May for that one. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with some pretty shocking announcements that happened in the span of like 6 or 7 hours yesterday. And we're going to start here with Embracer Group, as it appears they continue to shed numbers of expenses. And we've talked about them shutting down multiple studios internally, laying off a bunch of people, and then canceling game after game after game. Something like 30 games they've canceled so far. And it now looks like they are going to be offloading a pretty major or significant aspect of their company. This is something that cost them $500 million to bring in, and that's Saber Interactive. Now, we can actually see this was posted up by Bloomberg, and Eurogamer also covered it here, saying Embracer Group is set to sell Saber Interactive in a deal worth up to $500 million, this is according to a report from Bloomberg. Now, it is important to note that Embracer Group bought Saber Interactive years ago for $525 million, so it does seem like they're going to be selling this at a loss, and I mean, without even just inflation, just a $25 million loss technically there. But still, Saber will continue to work on its remake of Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic after development was removed from Aspire in 2022. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It appears that KOTOR, the remake, is not dead just yet. And in fact, really the idea that Saber would be taking it with them in this deal, I feel like this has a pretty good shot at getting done. Now, Saber, I assume this is all something being financed, covered by an investors group to make this happen, so Saber can kind of go off and sort of do this on their own. And Saber is comprised of around 3,500 people, and it will become privately owned according to Bloomberg. And in fact, apparently Saber will have the option to bring along multiple Embracer subsidiaries. So technically, I guess Aspire could go with them if they want. And there are several other studios below them that were part of that. There's a big company tree that's out there for Embracer trying to make sense of all these different studios and intellectual properties that they've collected. And it seemed like there were a couple underneath Saber at that point. But really the big thing here is Saber will be able to go off, kind of do what they want, as they can, yes, work to complete Knights of the Old Republic alongside of Disney, in that case, in partnership. And since they have so many people there, they can also run support to raise money maybe for other games. There's a lot that can happen here, but it also appears it wouldn't just end with Saber, as Gearbox is also fairly looking to be bought out from Embracer Group. This according to Kotaku, says Kotaku is learning that Gearbox is closer than ever to being sold out. Gearbox CEO and co-founder Randy Pitchford held a town hall with staff earlier this week in which he told employees that a decision had been made regarding the studio's future, with more information to be shared next month, according to two sources familiar with the meeting. Kotaku understands the decision was made to sell, and a deal is in the late stages of being finalized. So this is obviously massive for Gearbox, and they have sort of talked about how there were a couple different options. They try to finance their own buyout, essentially, and go fully independent, maybe private, similar to what we're seeing with Saber, or another entity come in and just buy them from Embracer. And Embracer is in a bad way right now, as we've kind of talked about for months, ever since that $2 billion deal fell through. They've been on their back foot just trying to make their revenue and expenses even out, and basically that means that a lot of layoffs, cancellations, and even the sell-offs of some of their studios and properties have been happening. And Gearbox, another large entity within Embracer, alongside with Saber Interactive. So for them, they have to consolidate and figure out what they need to focus on the most. And I guess that means that Saber doesn't make sense with them right now. Same with Gearbox and Borderlands, I guess. So I'll be curious to see what happens there with Gearbox, and I guess curious with Saber because they now hold all the KOTOR fans' hopes and dreams. They're now alive with Saber Interactive. So here's hoping they can pull off that remake, because that would be something special for them to do with their first big project, seemingly as a private independent company then. And we'll wait to hear more about this deal, as this was currently just broken by Bloomberg, and I'm sure there'll be more of a public announcement from Embracer and then even Saber themselves. And then Gearbox, I guess we'll see what happens in the next month or two, is that at least seems to be when the deal will be shaking up to close. Next up, let's talk about an announcement that myself, and I'm sure no one else had on their 2024 bingo card, as it appears that Toys for Bob is going indie. they're leaving Activision Blizzard. This is still kind of a weird one that someone's going to probably look more into as to how exactly it happened and have a full report on it. But this was posted up over on Toys for Bob's website. We can see right at the top, we're going indie. That's three words right at the top there. We're thrilled to announce that Toys for Bob is spinning off as an independent game development studio. With the same enthusiasm and passion, we believe that now is the time to take the studio and our future games to the next level. This opportunity allows us to return to our roots of being a small and nimble studio. To make this news even more exciting, we're exploring a possible partnership between our new studio and Microsoft. And while we're in the early days of developing our next new game and a ways away from making any new announcements, our team is excited to develop new stories, new characters, and new gameplay experiences. Our friends at Activision and Microsoft have been extremely supportive of our new direction, and we're confident that we will continue to work closely together as part of our future. By the way, pay special attention to this final paragraph. So keep your horns on and your eyes out for more news. Thank you to our community of players for always supporting us through our journey. We can't wait to share updates on our new adventure as an indie studio. Keep your horns on and eyes out for more news. There's been discussion that they have been working on a new Spyro game, and they very well could have worked to finish that up, and now they're moving independent. As look, we heard that their offices were basically closed down, as in the lease had run up seemingly, and I guess there was no push to renew it. And the Toys for Bob staff that was left wanted to go remote, and Microsoft seemed to be completely fine with this. And now it appears even more so they're allowing them to just go independent, but they'll still kind of work with Microsoft. At least that's the plan for some sort of relationship there with their next project. Now, this is an odd one, I guess, because on one hand, you feel like that could have still happened with Microsoft still owning Toys for Bob, but to my understanding, this is what Toys for Bob wanted. Like, this is something they were actively like, hey, we don't really want to be part of Activision Blizzard and just do Call of Duty stuff on the side. We want to straight down, not really go into this office that's set up here with a smaller staff because it doesn't make sense. We're not going to fill up the office and just work remote on stuff we want to work on. And yes, we can work with you guys in like this partnership capacity. And think of it kind of like where Microsoft may still own the intellectual property for Spyro, Banjo, or Crash, but they can still contract it to Toys for Bob and they can create the game. Kind of like what we see Sony do with certain games, Nintendo with a lot of their games actually. And I don't think that's a bad working relationship for the two of them, but I will say Toys for Bob was one of the more unique studios that Microsoft ended up getting out of that Activision Blizzard deal. And I felt like there was a pretty big future for them within Microsoft if Microsoft was willing to put the money behind them. And it seemed like maybe just that culture shift or that corporate kind of setup wasn't going to work for the people at Toys for Bob. And rather than, I guess, Microsoft shutting them down completely and they just go off and make a whole other studio like we see time and time again with really all these other big companies in the industry, maybe this is just a better way for them to still kind of collaborate together. They can keep the name Toys for Bob, and then they can work together on, I don't know, maybe there is a new Spyro game coming up here soon. Maybe they do want to work on a new Banjo game, or maybe they have a plan for a new intellectual property, and Microsoft is going to bankroll that, and it still kind of be a Microsoft published thing with Toys for Bob, an independent studio working on it. But yeah, not at all what I was expecting to see randomly on a Thursday, but here we are, Toys for Bob, now independent, and they don't have to worry about making trees and trash cans for the next Call of Duty Warzone. So that's a plus. Next up, let's talk about emulation once again being in the news, as of course we talked about Nintendo and Yuzu. We also had discussed Dolphin and the situation on Steam with Valve and Nintendo communicating and blocking Dolphin seemingly completely from launching on Steam's platform. And now it appears to be something that Amazon is dealing with for Emulation Station. Now, this was reported over on GBA Temp. They say emulator front-end Emulation Station has been removed from the Amazon App Store less than a week after its launch. The reasoning for the app's removal is, according to Amazon, Emulation Station facilitates emulating and pirating of games from third-party sources without explicit authorization from those sources. And GBA Temp correctly points out, despite Emulation Station merely acting as a front end and not actually including any emulators in the app. So That's kind of weird. I'm not really sure what Amazon's play is here, other than, oh, that might run a Nintendo game, and we saw what happened with Valve. We're not dealing with that. Well, in this case, Emulation Station, as an APK for the Android version of their front end, you'd have to go to their Patreon, pay $5.50 a month, and then you'll be given access to the APK. They do mention that you can just cancel Patreon support after a month. They themselves say this, and still keep the app and get future updates for it. So basically, it would in essence act like if you had purchased on Amazon's App Store the same. And I do wonder if this is something that Amazon also sees what's going on, Yuzu and Nintendo. And while Emulation Station is obviously more based around the older systems and games, the legacy stuff, still Amazon's probably like, maybe not. We just don't really want to deal with any of that. So it's easier for us to just kind of take this down than the potential ramifications of leaving it up with it. And just a sea of applications, the Emulation Station for $5 for a purchase, not really worth it in their mind. But it's just another knock on emulation, and something that keeps just seeming build and build and build. And I do think one of the big climactic events will be Nintendo versus Yuzu as it continues to progress throughout this year. And in our last bit of news, we had an interesting question that was asked of the Pokemon Company and creatures when it comes to Pokemon trading card game Pocket. This from Polygon, asking if it will in any way involve NFTs, which it's a card game. I guess you could tie that in technically, but it's also the Pokemon Company, creatures, Nintendo. I don't really think NFTs would necessarily merge there, but nonetheless, they were asked and they did answer. We can see this statement here where they say the Pokemon Company International has not developed or approved of non-fungible tokens, that's NFTs, related to the Pokemon brand and associated intellectual property. Fans should be aware that any NFTs in the marketplace featuring Pokemon intellectual property are unofficial and in no way affiliated with the Pokemon Company International or the Pokemon brand. So I guess the idea here is, hey, technically these NFTs, you can make it unique in the digital space. They don't really need that, to be honest. Like, the Pokemon Company is going to make stupid amounts of money off of selling digital booster packs that just exist on your phone, and that's sort of it. I don't think Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, creatures, DNA are going to play around with the idea of blockchain, nothing. Not for a long, long time, and that's if it ever even catches on anyway. In this case, they just probably want to sell you a booster pack for, what are they going to call it? $2 or $3 each on your phone, over and over and over and over again until you eventually get the Charizard, and then they introduce another Charizard a week later, and they do it over and over and over and over again, right? That's kind of the way it's going to work for that. I bet you get 2 free booster packs a day. I will admit, I've been looking at this. I might download it just to try it out to see what exactly is going on there when it does launch, because I'm curious if they can streamline the card game into a mobile device like that, because they have tried before and it just hasn't really caught on. But we'll see. At least opening the booster packs look fun. I mean, let's be real, that's probably where a lot of the money went, making the booster pack opening animation and sounds and stuff to keep you buying more. And before we go to the comments of the day, let's take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, Toys for Bob is going independent and has mentioned a new project along with a possible Microsoft partnership in the future. What do you want them to work on next? Okay, so we have Banjo as like the clear runaway favorite here at 34%. But then a new intellectual property, then Spyro, then Conquer, then wow, Crash is like way down. Maybe it's because we had a newer Crash recently, the others we haven't. A new IP though is interesting. I am curious what they would come up with. Maybe they generally have a really good idea, and now something ends up being kind of like Ukulele or so. Not that Ukulele was a bad game necessarily. It just wasn't a very memorable mascot like we've had with some of these other ones. But sure, Banjo is certainly in the cards, and maybe Toys for Bob pitched it, and it turned into a whole conversation around them going independent while still working on that project. So interesting stuff. But if that is the case, it's going to be a while before we see anything from them outside of maybe a new Spyro game that I feel like would have been in the works for a while anyway. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with this one here. This is from Royal, who says, the industry got caught up trying to go bigger and bigger. I'd be happy with smaller games that come out more frequently at lower prices, like $40 to $50. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Like the $40 to $50 games are fine, and they come out more frequently. Like I looked at something like, think of Astro's Playroom. Okay, let's say they go a little further with that game, and we get a new 3D Astrobot title, and it's $50. It's a 20-hour game. I feel like people, even if it was a 15-hour game, but it was a solid 3D platformer, I think it'd be worth the $50 or so. Based on what I saw with Astro's Playroom, I think there's a lot of talent at the Asobi team. And I think they could come up with a even larger Astro game. But that's the biggest thing is the big budget AAA games aren't going to go away. But I feel like you can sort of fill in some of the gaps in the release schedule, release cadence, because they take 6 or 7 years to make a game in 3 years and charge $40 to $50 and do that more frequently. I think that'd work to balance things out well. And then we'll go to a comment from the members video. This is from, I think it's Brussels Sprout saying, with these last few years being some of the best in terms of good games, I wonder if we will see a big difference in 3 to 6-ish years in terms of quality and creativity with all these layoffs. That's a good point. We always think of the here and now with a lot of things happening with, like, for example, these layoffs and reorganizations of companies. But these technically won't have effects on games for like 3 to, you say 6 years, like 3 or 4 years from now. Things might be midway through development, that sort of stuff where these layoffs would affect. But that's just how long it takes games to come out. A lot of the stuff that happens right now is just a lagging effect. So sure, maybe when the next generation starts up, we'll see an effect on game release and be like, oh yeah, this is from, well, those layoffs happened, or that year 2024 when just studios were going under and reorganizations were happening, and oh, this is why we have this game the way it is. That's something to remember going forward, is just how long it takes these kind of results to come out years and years later with these game developments. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. What is the situation going on right now at Embracer with seemingly Saber spinning off, now becoming private, independent, away from Embracer? Do you think Knights of the Republic Remake has a legitimate shot now? And then what about Gearbox? Maybe next month we'll hear about them leaving Embracer, and Toys for Bob going independent. What do you think their next big project's going to be? Will they try to make their own intellectual property? Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 Eastern Time for Newswave.
Introducing new Kinder Chocolate. Let that kid flag fly.
What's going on, guys? My name is John, and welcome back to yet another video, Shiny Pokemon. If you've invested even a little bit of time in the Pokemon franchise, you've easily heard this term used 1,000 different times. Among the 9 different generations of Pokemon you can catch in this series, all of them have an alternate variant known as a Shiny Pokemon. Over the years, hunting these special Pokemon has become the pastime for the majority of the fan base, and to be honest, I never really invested a lot of time into it. A while back I decided that I wanted to make a big video about catching shinies, but this project became a lot larger than I ever expected. I caught every shiny Pokemon available for each gym badge in Pokemon Let's Go UV. This is how it went. Now, if you're a regular to my channel, you probably know that the non-shiny version of this challenge is called a Professor Oak's Challenge, and this is something that I've done for nearly every game in the series, but if you've never seen one of these videos, the rules are extremely simple. The main rule for this challenge is you have to complete the Pokedex as much as you can before taking on each gym badge, which means that once I've caught every shiny before each gym, I have to evolve them to the highest evolution that's available. In comparison to other games for this challenge, this is a pretty easy task considering the non-shiny version of this challenge, I finished it in like 15 hours. But as you can imagine, having to catch every single shiny Pokemon before each gym is a little more difficult than that. This video is dedicated to everyone who supported all of my content over the years, and I appreciate you all for being so patient during the making of this. With all that out of the way, let's just get right into it. So as we start in the beginning of the story, let's talk about how shiny Pokemon work in this game. Now, unlike pretty much every other mainline Pokemon game, shinies appear in the overworld rather through random grass encounters. As a result, we can save a bit of time by not encountering every single Pokemon we see to check if it sparkles, and all we really have to do is wait around for it to show up. Thankfully, for the first section of the game, we only have to catch a handful of Pokemon, but it's important to note that our methods to increase our chances of finding a shiny are limited, but we'll talk more about that in a second. I'd like to note at this point that I made a rough estimate as to how long it would take to complete all of this. Considering the shiny odds, I figured it would take around 300 hours to get through the whole challenge. A very long time, sure, but definitely possible to finish in a couple months. I would like to make it clear that my estimate was very off. Now, if you know anything about the first section of this challenge, there are really only 3 places that we'll need to tackle to get every shiny we need. Route 1 or 2, Route 22, and the low frame rate Viridian Forest. After taking care of the very short list of tasks at the beginning of the game, I was able to make my way to Pewter City to prepare for my first shiny. Unlike the other challenges where I go route by route until I'm in the last area, it's kind of important in this type of challenge to get as far as possible and take advantage of every available item, gift, and battle for this section. I'm going to be a little hypocritical about that later on, but it'll make a lot more sense as we make our way through the challenge. Okay, so let's talk about the first big question in this challenge. How do you get a shiny Pokemon? First and foremost, it's all luck. In the history of the Pokemon franchise, there have been very few shiny Pokemon that are guaranteed, most notably things like the Red Gyarados in the Johto region, Gible and Dratini in the Unova region, and most recently Ponyta in Legends Arceus. As I mentioned, in this game you can visually see a shiny Pokemon in the world before you get into a battle, but what are the odds of seeing one? Yikes. So with odds like that, this challenge is an immediate pass to basically everyone that would even be slightly interested in attempting this. But thankfully, at this point in the franchise's history, the game developers knew that people liked hunting for shiny Pokemon, but they didn't want to spend weeks on end looking for one measly Pokemon. Ever since the Generation 2 games, there have been special methods that allow you to look for shiny Pokemon with significantly better chances than the standard amount. Let me introduce you to the catch combo. Now, this method involves a lot, so I suggest getting a pen and paper and writing this down so you don't forget. Basically, what you have to do is catch Pokemon. Did you get all that? You need to repeat it. In this game, if you catch the same Pokemon in a row, for this instance Bellsprout, you'll initiate a catch combo. This amount is indicated both before and after you catch the Pokemon, and the only requirement to advance your combo is to just catch more of that same Pokemon. The chain will only break if you catch any other Pokemon than what you're currently chaining, completely close out of the game, or if the Pokemon runs away from the battle. As you progress through the catch combo, your shiny odds will increase, and once you reach a total of 31 in a row, your odds will drop to 1 out of 341. For now. There are other ways to increase your shiny rate, but currently these are the lowest odds that we can reach at this point in the game. Once I reached a catch combo of 31 on my first Pokemon, I tried to find out the best way to get as many encounters as possible. Because I didn't have a single shiny Pokemon yet, I really didn't care what I got first, and I figured that the best play would be to hunt the lowest percentage encounter first, as my chances of finding the most common Pokemon like Pidgey would probably just happen naturally through playing. Although Pokemon naturally despawn after a certain amount of time, I realized that when you first enter a route after exiting a gate, a bunch of Pokemon will pop up. By going in and out of the gate, I was able to spawn Pokemon extremely fast on Route 2 North, which was much faster than every other location that has these Pokemon. With this, I was able to get about 1,200 encounters per hour, and after a little bit of playing, I was able to grab my first shiny. Alright, it's currently about 4 o'clock in the morning. This is a day after I did the first start of the hunt, and I found the first shiny. It is a shiny Bellsprout, kinda sick. I don't have this one, I've never had this Pokemon before. I got this after 3,368 encounters. Yikes. This was a genuine shock because I assumed this would be a lot faster, and the fact that it was nearly 10 times over odds seems statistically impossible when you consider that every Pokemon shiny chance increases when you combo a Pokemon, not just the Pokemon with the catch combo. The shiny odds in this game have been a point of contention in the Pokemon community ever since the game's release, and although I did want to just make a video on catching shinies, I also wanted to get to the bottom of this and figure out exactly why the odds aren't as good as they're made out to be. Despite all this took me a little over 2 hours to find, so I really can't complain that badly. Later in the day, I managed to find a shiny Rattata after 1,997 encounters. Not exactly the 1 in 300 odds that I'm still looking for, but these hunts are moving fast, so I didn't really see any reason to complain. That was until I went for Pidgey. My final shiny for the day was Pidgey after 5,094 encounters. Although I was extremely grateful I didn't encounter any duplicates on the route, I knew already this early in the challenge that the shiny odds that are deep in the game's code were definitely too high to be true. After doing a bit of research, it's apparent that although the game's code does support these odds, the amount of people going 10, 20, and even 30 times over odds makes it seem like something else is at play. For comparison, this hunt was almost 17 times over odds. If this happened in Sword and Shield with the shiny charm, it would take me roughly 23,000 encounters to find it. Statistically, it's just too high to justify not having interference. If you calculate the probability of finding a shiny within 5,000 encounters, it comes out to this. Obviously, people get really unlucky every once in a while, so maybe it's just a one-time thing. With routes 1 and 2 completed, it was time to take on Route 22, which is by far the most difficult area out of this entire section of the challenge. Although there aren't any absurdly rare Pokemon, I found out very early on that I was going to encounter Pokemon a lot less quickly than I did earlier. Unlike Route 2, the closest entrance that we can go through is the gate that leads to the Pokemon League, and with an enormous fence blocking the way, not only can you not see every Pokemon instantly when you enter the area, you also can't see every Pokemon that spawns. This may not seem like a huge deal having to walk for an extra 10 seconds, but with all this downtime, it generates about half the encounters per hour that I got in the previous area. I decided to start looking for a Nidoran male, but this began the start of my bad luck in the challenge. A very important thing to note about the catch combo method is that when you reach the chain of 11 for a specific Pokemon, you'll start seeing that specific Pokemon more frequently than others. The shiny odds are obviously increased for the Pokemon you're looking for, but so is every other overworld Pokemon in the entire game. This means that while walking around with a catch combo of 31 for Nidoran, I have the same odds for finding a shiny Pidgey on this route, or even a shiny Charmander if I went to a completely different location. As you can imagine, this gives a ton of potential for finding a shiny that you weren't chaining for, which isn't necessarily bad this early on, but over time the odds of phasing or not finding your intended target will become a lot more common. Okay. Yeah, I'm not catching this. I'm just gonna not catch it to continue my combo, but it's cool that I found it. So after this encounter, I felt I was going to get absolutely destroyed in the comments if I ran away from every single Pokemon that wasn't the one I was looking for. So I decided from this point on that I'd attempt to catch every single shiny that I came across, no matter how badly I didn't want to get it. Surely this genius idea won't extend the challenge too far. The next day I grinded to get an actual Pokemon that I needed, and although I was dedicated, I was unaware that the hunt for Pidgey was child's play compared to how long it would take to get this next Pokemon. After 9 hours of hunting, I finally got something that I wanted. Oh my god! No, 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 no. No, that's a flea animation. Please don't. Please don't fail. 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 Oh my god. Okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. To be honest, I don't think I would have continued this challenge if it ran away, considering that this entire day I was contemplating even continuing. But who has time to complain? I'm on a mission here. There's still 2 more Pokemon that I need to get, and knowing my luck, I'm going to be here forever, so I better strap in and get to catching, because... Oh! Alright. With a whopping 5 encounters after seeing Nidoran, I managed to find another Pokemon that I needed, which means I only have 1 more Pokemon for this area. Nidoran. Again. Yeah, so unfortunately both Nidoran can be found here, but on the upside, this didn't take the 9 hours like it did for Nidoran male. It took 10. But hey, I didn't find any duplicates, and now I can move on to one of the best locations in the entire game, the Viridian Forest. This is going to be the final stop before the first gym leader, as we can't access any more routes until we get to the first badge. But don't be fooled. If there's anything that people know about this forest, it's that it's a slideshow when you play it in handheld mode, and more importantly, it spawns a lot of Pokemon. This area allows for 20 Pokemon to appear on the map at one time, which, if you compare it to the previous area that had a max of 4, it seems like there's a high potential to find shinies pretty quickly. In addition, there are very few duplicates that can appear, with only 25% of the spawns being Pidgey or Bellsprout, but this area is also the start of a brand new mechanic. Now, if you remember from earlier, I mentioned that once you get to a catch combo of 11, the Pokemon you're chaining has an increased chance of spawning. On top of that, in certain areas, there's a special Pokemon that can appear in this combo, and they'll continue to reappear as long as your combo stays above that number. These Pokemon can still appear outside of chaining, but without a combo, they have a 0.5% chance. So as you can imagine, chaining something like this would not only take forever to get to 11 to spawn more of them, but if I didn't find the shiny that I wanted, I'd have to spend another 2 to 3 hours trying to get back up to a 31 combo for the best odds. Thankfully, we can take advantage of this mechanic. While you have your 11 combo, the next spawn will have a 50% chance to beat a special spawn, and it will keep rolling for that until 1 is on the map. This means that I could just get a chain of 31 with another shiny that I needed, and just run into Bulbasaur over and over until 1 appeared to be shiny. Because Pikachu is easily the rarest spawn here, I decided to chain that first, and run the Bulbasaur over and over in hopes of at least 1 of the 2 appearing. Thankfully, that worked out. After encountering 556 Bulbasaur, I managed to get a Pikachu, and because it didn't break my combo, I just kept going. Later that day, I ended up finding another Pikachu, and although I had found nearly 1,500 Bulbasaur by this point, the method was working. Yikes. That was a long time. I really hope I don't fail this. Now, one big thing to know about the earlier part of this challenge is that I realized very quickly that I was not very good at handling time-sensitive situations. Getting the ball. Ah! Ah! Okay, no. No, 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 no. I like to know that I'm doing this in literally the worst way possible. When you encounter a Pokemon, there isn't a timer as to when it's going to flee. It's dependent on how many Pokeballs and items that you use that increase its chance of fleeing. With dumb luck, I was still able to get it, and I moved on to looking for Caterpie. Now, although Bulbasaur took me about 6 hours to find, the hardest part of this section is all done, so I can just sit back, relax, and... Ah! An hour later, I managed to find the Golden Worm, which leaves only one more Pokemon before we can actually play the game. Weedle. Because I was so adamant about finishing the first section, I grinded catch combos the entire following day, and thankfully, it paid off. After only 322 encounters, I found a Metapod, which is new, but not what I'm looking for. But a couple of hours later, it finally happened. The time has come. 1,618 encounters. I finally found the last Pokemon. That's so... Oh, I love the shiny too. No! Please. Oh, dude. Yes! Yeah, that's the last one. So now I get to do the fun part, which realistically takes about an hour to do. And who knows? We'd find some shinies in between, so that's pretty cool too. Alright, it's grind time. Now, if you watch the previous Professor Oak challenges I've done, you know that the real highlight of the challenge is the grinding portion, where typically evolving Pokemon like Bulbasaur or Venusaur before fighting Brock is this long-winded, pedal-to-the-metal, 14 XP per battle grind for eternity. Thankfully, the shiny hunting is going to be the tedious part of this challenge. Out of all the Pokemon, Bellsprout is the easiest Pokemon to chain that gives the most experience, so I spent about 3 hours chaining them until everything was evolved to the highest possible evolution. There are some Pokemon like Bellsprout and both of the Nidoran that can't reach their final evolution, as evolution stones aren't available at this point in the game, but I'll make sure to take care of that when they become available. While I was doing this, I also made sure to give detailed commentary about my thoughts for each new shiny that I saw. Nice. I'm not going to cover every single Pokemon that I evolved, mostly because this video is long enough, but don't worry, I'll still play the noise. After catching about 200 Bellsprout through a couple of chains, I managed to evolve my final Pokemon, and I was able to register 23 shinies in my Pokedex before the first gym, and if we also count the duplicates, I obtained nearly 30 shinies before even stepping foot into the first real challenge of the game. Now, as you can probably expect, having a team of level 30 Pokemon this early in the game is going to make this pretty easy to get through, but I see it as a rite of passage for catching everything. I get them all, you let me mop your team without getting hit once. After a quick 5-minute battle, I was able to get the first badge from Brock to actually complete this section, which now brings us to... Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, when it comes to tackling each section of the game, it's really best to make it as far as you can before you start hunting, as there are usually a lot of opportunities to get a lot of items that could potentially make hunts a lot easier. Unfortunately for this section, that's not really an option. If you know anything about the Kanto region, you know that the next big hurdle that needs to be tackled is Mount Moon, which obviously contains a large chunk of the Pokemon available for the next badge. Although it would be smart to skip this area and get prepared in Cerulean City, once you leave Mount Moon, you can't go back until much later in the game, which means that all the shinies in this area need to be addressed right now. With that in mind, let's start with round 3. Thankfully, this area only has 2 Pokemon that need to be caught, with one of them being a special spawn. I decided to work for Charmander first, and thankfully this didn't take too long as I found one after only encountering 422 of them. And while that's cool, this specific hunt was much more than just finding the shiny. A neat little feature this game has is the ability to walk around with your Pokemon. However, some Pokemon like Charizard can be ridden, which in nearly all cases is a lot faster than walking. With that in mind, I decided to evolve this immediately to be able to fly around, which is going to be a huge help for increasing encounters in locations just like this, where it can't exactly leave and re-enter an area quickly. Surely with this new method, the next Pokemon won't take nearly as long to get, right? Yeah, so if you had secondhand frustration for both of the Nidoran hunts, Ekans was a completely different animal. The hunt for this Pokemon took nearly 8,900 encounters to find, and you might be thinking, well, with being able to ride Charizard, I'm sure it was pretty fast to get there. And while it was much faster than walking, This hunt took me exactly 30 hours. Now, I'm not typically the one to reveal how much time it takes to complete each section because I feel like it takes away from the surprise at the end, but to get all the shinies before Brock, it took about 72 hours, so pouring nearly half of that into one Pokemon didn't exactly give me a great feeling about continuing the rest of this challenge. And to make matters worse, there's a brand new hunt that needs to be tackled right now. So throughout the entirety of this game, easily the most forgettable Pokemon you can obtain is the gift Magikarp that's available in the Pokemon Center right before entering Mount Moon. Although your starter is shiny locked at the beginning of the game, every other gift Pokemon can be hunted, and because you can't even get Magikarp in the wild in this section, I need to hunt it here. If there's anything you should know about shiny hunting in Switch Pokemon games, it's that soft reset hunts take forever. I think the most recent one was getting a shiny starter in Brilliant Diamond because of how much waiting there is between encounters. Thankfully, it doesn't take as long as a briefcase simulator, but when you account for the loading times, you can encounter about 70 per hour, so you can probably guess that these are going to be the largest hurdles in the entire game. On top of that, unlike the wild encounters, all gift Pokemon odds are stuck at the base 1 out of 4,096, with the only exception being if you have the shiny charm, which obviously at this point in the game is impossible to get. Thankfully, the game really tried to compensate for the hunt for Ekans. That was so fast. This was a refreshing treat because I was so concerned. I found this in 510 soft resets, which is insane. I'm really glad it didn't take 4,000 plus encounters because that would have been so bad. But in total, so because it takes about a minute, so this took like
One piece of belonging.
oh, yeah, no, that's a long time. So with all this done, now let's take on the largest chunk of this section. Mount Moon has a total of 6 Pokemon that need to be obtained before we leave, but thankfully this is by far the fastest location for encounters out of basically any part of the game we've taken on.
There was one hot dog working there that got right up the
Power on. Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected. Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
They don't have the money to stuff and put it out of there.
EA Sports. J'ai mangé la jungle, j'avais le Air Max, mais j'ai rangé, j'ai mis le Hermès avant le jingle, j'ai mis le finger, j'ai mis dans pour avoir le game, il fallait la rigueur, toujours à banane, fait mal à mon kicker, mais pas du rouge, regarde dans un G-Mat, un ça glace dans ma, et c'est pas tout le monde qui est dans ma ligue, C'est pas tout le monde qui est dans ma ligue. Placement sur nos logos. Au fiston, je vais tout léguer. Absent. Un peu trop pensif, je rallume. Environ 4 points, je m'endors au logo. Je dois vendre. Je sais qu'ils sont morts, mais j'en veux beaucoup. Je dois vendre. Je sais qu'ils sont morts, mais j'en veux beaucoup. Alors maintenant, les choses vont contre la. Nous qu'à récupérer les mois, nous qu'à récupérer les mois. J'arrive en Prada, comme de président. Pressé, je peux pas rester. Ça rigole, je me sens léger. Toujours un belly, go to London. Toujours un belly, go to London. Scum, pour presque 20 points que je nous pardonne.
Pull up on my ex in a Louis car. She was like, boy, who do you think you are? I got her. She living in Paris. She come to the ends on a Eurostar.
Toujours un belly, go to London. Toujours un belly, go to London. Scum, pour presque 20 points que je nous pardonne.
Pull up on my ex in a Louis car. She was like, boy, who do you think you are? I got her. She living in Paris. She come to the ends on a Eurostar. Put my life on the line and get back from my bro like a rip from a phenom. Go on the field in his story and push, but stay on his D like a rim Benzema. I came up from instant noodles, now snow we eating shrimp tempura. My fans love me and I love them too. I'm not here for the fame, I'm here for the moolah. I was OT somewhere near the Oxford Uni. I want a scholar. Nah. I brushed my shoulder and put my collar. Remember the loaf of bread went stale and the last bit of milk in the fridge had gone on. I was posted outside of McDonald's and now I'm in Lagos eating Tula. I'm there for my brother anytime that he needs, I'm here. I'm real. I got so just flew through the ozone layer. Go step down the crib with a zombie killer, my demon step with a vampire slayer. You know, the under 18s with the kids when I track it, they watch
Toujours un
them
belly, go to London. Toujours un belly, go to London. Scum, pour presque 20 points que je nous pardonne.
Pull up on my ex in a Louis car. She was like, boy, who do you think you are? I got her. She living in Paris. She come to the ends on a Eurostar.
Toujours un belly, go to London. Toujours un belly, go to London. Scum, pour presque 20 points que je nous pardonne.
Pull up on my ex in a Louis car. She was like, boy, who do you think you are? I got her. She living in Paris. She come to the ends on a Eurostar.
Estos son los titulares del Fútbol Club Barcelona. Con el 1, Ter Stegen. Con el 4, Ronald Araujo. Con el 23, Koundé. Con el 15, Christensen.
Oh, yeah.
Con el 9, Lewandowski. Don Manuel Herrerías apunta a la puerta 33. Los medios de seguridad acaban de inculcar a su hija Julia. Con el 9, Robert Lewandowski. Gol del Barça. Con el 9, Robert Lewandowski. Marca el Barcelona. Gol del Barça. Marca el Barcelona. Con el 9, gol del Barça. Con el 9, Robert Lewandowski. Con el 22, Rafinha. Gol del Barça. Con el 21, Frankie de Jong.
What? What? Yeah.
Con el 9, Lewandowski. Gol del Barcelona. Con el 9, Lewandowski. Marca el Barcelona. Con el 9, Lewandowski.
Where's that big hole at, William? Over where?
Here, down at the bottom.
Big blue game.
No, I don't have it yet.
We ain't playing, William.
So,
No.
hey, let me go for this. No, it's a problem. It's not cause it's not cause I can't eat. It's just, I want to go out and just smoke it out. You know, when you go out with all the neighbors,
Yeah.
like hiding, it's not the eating thing. It's just, I want to make it out. Is there anything wrong with that? Because I don't think it's like anyone at all that, as long as I don't try to eat something, I just want to call because, you know, I miss the neighbors.
Yeah.
Heidi, Karen, to be honest.
Well, do you want to go out and drool in front of them?
No!
All right.
How is Robert tell you? Robert, tell
Well,
them.
I'm not talking about eating. I'm talking about just naturally drooling.
Robert, tell Robert, just look it out.
Well, you go outside and walk around right now.
No, to restaurants with the neighbors.
That way you can't talk.
Sort of.
Well,
Come on, man, I'm not that disabled. How disabled do you think I am, Grandpa?
Marca el Barcelona.
So can I see them? Grandma?
I don't know. Kevin has a work function.
Oh. Well then who is it? Who is it?
Sorry.
Can I say hi to you?
What's the cost? Wanna be shining like I'm diamonds over glass. What's the cost? On the block, wanna know who has got the when I maneuver to the top, I'm on the dot, that's why I'm on the top. Ever since the young I had the hunger, so I never stop. Clever clubs, always put the pressure on. Elevate the echelons, holding on for dear life. I pass it down and sell it on. Man, I stack it once. Some are taking risks compared to learn if I do get it wrong. Everybody's different, but maybe couldn't get along. If we put the egos down and devils in the Pentagon. It was
Will you please make some noise as we welcome to the pitch our visitors, Los Angeles FC. Your Inter Miami. Goal for Inter Miami. Number 10, Lionel Messi. Goal for Inter Miami. Number 10, Lionel Messi. Goal for Inter Miami. Number 17, Joseph Alexander Martinez. goal for Inter Miami. Number 10, Lionel Messi.
That's it. The yellow egg at the top, and you're looking at it, that's what I want.
What they on top?
Yellow egg. You're standing right in front of it, looking at it.
Yeah, they get the other one, the other day.
No, it's not.
Oh, if you want one of them, stop. No. Okay.
Yeah.
Power off.
Do shit. What the heck? It's more America too.
you can lose weight like a celebrity?
Se você for patricinha, ele vai te dar moral.
No way!
Se você for patrocinar, ele vai te dar moral.
From Disney Animation and the groundbreaking storytellers of Kigali.
You want to see the real
Se você for patrocinar, ele vai te dar moral. Se você for patrocinar, ele vai te dar moral. patriciana ele vai te dar moral.
Cheers.
Se você for patriciana ele vai te dar moral.
Attention vault dwellers! Fallout is coming to Magic the Gathering! The perfect addition to any inventory, this revolutionary new product hits the entire wasteland in the convenience of your pocket. All of your friends are here, like dog meat.
Se você for patriciana ele vai te dar moral.
Why did no one tell Ohio drivers about this new rule? If you're currently insured and you drive less than 50 miles a day and you live within a qualified zip code, you can minimize the amount.
tap the Get It Fast filter, and you'll be shown options available for quick shipping. This is great. So how about that?
Never mind. I'm Ashley Park, and this is my perfect 10.